Okay, I don't even know what to think. I don't even know what to think at this point. I can't stop there. I've got to go into the next episode. I'll gather my thoughts after this episode and find out what happens, because there's no way I can just stop after that one. Now, if ever there was an episode to not start this with, it would be this one, right after the return. But, hey, it's a separate episode, so I get it. Oh, that's a different intro screen. Wait.
Do you need any help? No! I mean, don't look at me! Just go away. What?
He's very angry.
Hey, wait! You're out! Patty, please! I need to find Sapphire! Is she your friend? I'm looking for my friends, too. She's all alone! I need to find her! Don't worry. We'll find our friends. And we'll do it together! Well, wait for me!
So wait.
My name's Steven, by the way. What's yours? Quiet! I can't see.
Can't
This way. That's why we can't fight them. That's why we have to fight them.
Yeah.
I'll come back for you.
Oof. Poor Lapis.
Stop singing! Rose quartz takes priority. Get back to the bridge and set a course for homeworld.
Jasper's scary. So it's Sapphire and the other one.
Sapphire, you escaped. Of course. Come on!
I'm not going to say anything until I'm sure.
Ruby!
Sapphire and Ruby.
Did they hurt you? No, I'm okay. Did they hurt you? Who cares? I do.
Yes!
Thank you. Darn it! You're a fusion?
I knew it!
We didn't want you meeting us here. Quit embarrassing yourselves. I see what you really are. No, you haven't. This is Garnet, back together. And I'm never going down at the hands of the likes of you, because I'm so much better. And every part of me is saying, go get her. The two of us ain't gonna follow your rules. Come at me without any of your fancy tools. Let's go, just me and you. Let's go, just one on two.
She does a very good job at maintaining her vocals despite getting in a fight.
You got this, girl. Okay, Chef, turn us around.
Oh, good lord, she went supersonic. Yep, she's basically supersonic. I like that. That's one way to get an escape pod.
We were waiting for your birthday. We
Aw.
can still do it. I'll just pretend I didn't know.
Oh, jeez.
Lapis, listen. Fuse with me. What? How long did they keep you trapped here on this miserable hunk of rock?
God, she's terrifying.
These gems.
Oh, jeez. Man, she's scary. And so is that. Oh, Lapis is taking over.
What are you doing? I'm done. Everyone's prisoner. Now you're my prisoner, and I'm never letting you go.
Wow.
Lapis, let's stay on this miserable planet together. Hello?
Steven, I got your message. Are you okay? What's going on?
Oh, good lord. This is beautiful. Okay. So, wow. The dramatic difference between these two episodes. Not in quality by far, but wow. Okay, now that that's over, I actually don't even know if I have any. I'm sure I have some moments from both of those episodes to like put together into a reaction of sorts, but I feel like I was just silent the whole time, staring. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to take a few minutes to get my thoughts together and compile my notes, and I will be back with you all for the review segment for these two episodes. Alright everyone, welcome back, and it is time for the review segment of this video, and I've decided to just kind of divide it up into, the two episodes, so I'll cover the return first, and then Jailbreak afterward. So starting with my favorite parts of the return. Honestly, it's just about everything of the episode, but to try and cover the main points, the pointing hand in the sky, which we find out is the Homeworld Gym ship, which is a really cool design, by the way. That was just... After the last ship we saw, which was just this giant eye, or what they call it, the red eye? Or whatever it was. Basically, seeing a hand, that's another real interesting aspect. So I'm kind of almost expecting if we get another ship from Homeworld, it'll be a foot, or maybe a mouth, I don't know. But and also the fact that basically none of their weapons had any effect on the ship from the outside. Like we had the triple light cannons, or really like the triple light cannons and then the solo one, all firing at the ship, no effect. Which, well, I mean, that actually brings me to another one of my favorite parts of the episode, the fact that we get Opal again, and not a speaking role unfortunately, just a kind of a cameo. But even her barrage of arrows has no effect. Seemingly, possibly, more of an effect than the light cannons originally, at least based on the impact sounds that we get. But still, no effect on the outside of the ship, which is rather terrifying, all things considered. Especially since they used one light cannon back in the second episode to take down the eyeball ship, or the red eye, or whatever it was called. So yeah, that's pretty intimidating. My next favorite part is where the gems influence Steven to leave with Greg, because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what they're going to be facing, and they need Steven to survive just in case, to protect the people of Earth, because if something happens to them, who is going to take up the fight? And it would have to be Steven. As terrifying a thought as that is, because he's not a fighter. Like, he could become one, but he is a defender more than anything, which maybe that could work for him in the long run. But, I mean, seemingly, thankfully, we won't have to worry about that. But yeah, just that whole segment I thought was really powerful. My next favorite part is the talk that's Greg and Steven's talk when they're driving away, and just the different things they talk about there is like the fact that Steven is so hopeful that maybe Peridot will see the good of people, will see the good of Earth, and they won't want to attack the Earth. And then Greg makes the comment, "just like your mother," which is actually, I'll go ahead and say it here, that's my quote of the episode, "just like your mother." Really well done line. And the thing I love about this show increasingly is the way they animate the characters when they say these certain things. It's so spot on, it's so natural, and you can see the nostalgia and the love in Greg's face when he says that, and I just think it's so excellent. And then they go on to the aspect of, like, Greg doesn't know exactly how to put it with what the gems really are, that the gems don't want Steven to see them as this certain thing, and that's aliens that invaded Earth. Because it's clear from the kindergarten that that Amethyst came from, like, they were already invading Earth, but it's thanks to Rose Quartz that the invasion was stopped, or that the homeworld gems were kicked off of Earth. But the gems are essentially alien invaders, and Steven is part alien in that case. So yeah, I just that whole conversation I really enjoyed. And then also, you know, the fact where Steven, like, punches the dash and then gets knocked out of the van. That was pretty enjoyable, I have to say. And I knocked my glasses off. Sorry. But my next favorite part was just the Steven's message for Connie, or the voice message left for Connie. It was such a cute and innocent thing to say while going toward seemingly impending doom. Now, it's a kid's show, and, you know, there's of course going to be that lightheartedness. But unlike sometimes in certain shows when they throw in a little bit of lightheartedness, you know, to uplift, you know, the darkness of what's going on, they did a good job of mingling it into this episode, because it was a message that was so Steven. It was such a thing that he would say. So it really worked for me in that way. Now, my next favorite part is basically the entire segment after the ship/hand lands, and we're introduced to Peridot in person. Jasper, who, I mean, is easily the most terrifying gem I've ever seen. Well, except for maybe some of the fusions, but still, as far as just a single gem persona, Jasper is just freaking terrifying. And for some strange reason, she thinks that Steven is Rose Quartz, which I guess from, like, a homeworld gem's perspective, her gem being part of Steven kind of makes sense, but at the same time it's just very strange. And then finally, the last part of that is when Jasper is referring to the others, and she refers to Pearl as a lost, defective Pearl. And I don't know, so just something seemed strange about that. Yeah, I don't know, just something about that line really caught my attention, so I'm interested to see whether or not that will be expanded on, or that might be explored some in the future of the show. And then after that, I guess you could call this a favorite part, but The mention of Yellow Diamond. I'm assuming that Yellow Diamond is the leader of these gems, or maybe the leader of Homeworld. I don't fully know, but I'm curious to find out more about Yellow Diamond. And who knows how long it'll be till that actually happens. But I do know the show is, quite a ways ahead of where I am at this point. So if Yellow Diamond has become a thing, as always, no spoilers for that. I've been doing pretty good with avoiding spoilers for this show so far. So yeah, we'll keep it from there. But anyway, as far as annoyances go, I don't have any. This was a really well done episode. It had its great funny moments. It was really powerful, extremely dramatic. I just loved it. And that brings me to a bit of a continuation from my previous Discovering Steven universe, and that is the moment of terror, and that is when, seemingly, Jasper killed Garnet. That, now that I've seen the next episode, what occurs makes more sense. But when I was watching that at the time, the way they had Garnet's body, breaking apart, and then that last look, in my mind, basically killed her. So yeah, that was just a pure moment of terror for me. That left me in shock. So yeah, that was a moment that there's no way I could put that in a favorite part. I guess I could at this point, now that I know what happens afterward, but still just absolutely terrifying. Oh, but moving on from there, I already talked about the quote of the episode, and I'll hold off on the track of the episode because it actually kind of intermingles with the next episode, Jailbreak, not the Jailbreak. So I will say that I do have a few questions from this episode. The first of which I kind of already mentioned, and that's, who is Yellow Diamond? So I kind of, mentioned my thoughts on that, so I'll move on to my second question, which is, if Jasper was on Earth for the war, why had she never met Rose? And I know that there are, thousands of years, and they never actually say how long the war took place, but over all that time, it seems strange that, especially if Jasper seems to be a pretty high-up commander, at least in the Homeworld gems, or a very powerful adversary at the very least, it seems strange that she would have never actually met Rose Quartz. So I'm wondering, how is that possible? Or, and again, that might be something that's never fully explained. Maybe it's just sort of, she was fighting elsewhere when Rose was elsewhere. I don't really know. But that is definitely a big question for me as far as this episode goes. And now, moving on to Jailbreak. This episode, right off the bat, getting into my favorite parts, I love the fact that they used a different title card. Because the opening title cards, they do change it up occasionally, there might be rain going on, or the time of day being displayed. That does change from time to time. But this is the first time, as far as I can remember, that we've actually had one in a completely different location and actually taking place in space. And just as a quick aside, I feel like when the episode opened, instead of having the usual theme song like they did with this one, especially after what happens at the end of the return, that they should have just opened up the episode with that title card. Or at least just, I don't know, maybe an alternate version of the intro, something a lot shorter. But yes, it feels like that title card would have been the perfect cold open for this episode. But moving on from there, my second favorite part of the episode is the fact that seemingly the shields, or I guess it might be the same thing considering the patterns it makes in the bodies as the disruptor thing that I thought killed Garnet. Basically, they only tickle Steven, or yeah, I guess that's kind of accurate because it never really seems like he's in pain. It just kind of seems like he's being vibrated really fast. So I actually really like that fact, and the fact that he's only half gems, so he's able to get through these fields and, you know, take the full brunt of one of the wands or whatever it is from Peridot, and it doesn't hurt him. Yes, it affects him, obviously, but it doesn't hurt him or disrupt him into, like, retreating into his gym, if that's even possible for him to do. Again, being half human. My next favorite part, well, I have them divided into two, but I'll combine them into one, really. It's the red gem and the blue gem, which we find out are Sapphire and Ruby, or Ruby and Sapphire, in that proper order. And Ruby is definitely the much more hot-headed character, or gem Sona, and not even so much angry, just very super anxious. Yeah, that might be actually the best way to put it. She's extremely anxious, like she really, really, really wants to find Sapphire. I'm pretty sure it's a she. It seems like pretty much all of the gems so far, except for Steven, have been female. And at least from what I've been able to catch from the fandom, just in off comments, it seems like gems in general tend to take on female personas. So yeah, sorry, that was kind of an aside, but thinking out loud. So she's definitely the more hot-headed of the two, and then Sapphire is the more, well, she's the one that's been singing throughout the whole episode. In the background, we get these little echoes of her singing, and she's much more calm, which, I mean, I'll get to that in just a moment as to how that works, but I really like the introduction of those two, and I'm hoping that we might get to see a little bit more of them not fused together, so like to learn more about the two personalities in general, or the two gems in general. And my next, I hate to call these things favorite parts, but just a moment that caught my attention of the episode is the fact that Lapis has seemingly just given up. Like she was so excited and she was so elated when Steven healed her to be able to leave and get back to Homeworld, but as soon as she got back and we received, or the gems received the message from her, she was scared because of how much it had changed, and now she's a prisoner of other Homeworld gems, seeming that, well, I guess technically she didn't give Jasper all the information for Steven, so maybe that's why they jailed her technically, but yeah, I don't know, I feel really bad for Lapis throughout this whole episode, until the very end, which, again, is something I'm going to touch on. But moving on from there, when it's finally fully revealed that Ruby and Sapphire are, in fact, Garnet, that Garnet has been a fusion the entire time, and that Garnet is, in fact, a fusion that can maintain its stability and stay together seemingly infinitely. Now, obviously, we don't always see Garnet on screen, and that's the only way to say whether or not maybe they do, you know, separate from time to time. But all things considered, especially with my next favorite part, they are a seemingly completely stabilized fusion that can only be broken apart by what seems to be these stupid wands, or maybe even the fields in the jail cell. So yeah, I really like that, and I was so happy to see that, like, my suspicions all along had basically been confirmed by that. That was an awesome moment. But let's see. But my next favorite part of the episode is definitely just Garnet. Garnet through and through. From the moment that she returns, and the joy in the character's voice and on her face. Again, like I said in the previous episode, the way they animate the characters' faces to go along with what they're saying is just so well done. And the song that Garnet sings throughout excuse me, throughout her fight with Jasper, it hits on so many amazing notes that really it helps make sense why Ruby and Sapphire are able to stay together as Garnet for as long as they do, or to basically be Garnet, because it doesn't seem like, unlike the other fusions, it doesn't seem like there's a time limit to it. It's a relationship. It is love. Their love is stronger than Jasper. their love is stronger than basically anything. So yeah, I mean, Garnet through and through with this episode, just an amazing, amazing part. And I don't know, I'm sure some people have, well, I'll need to see the rest of the episodes to see what else happens, or what else might happen with Garnet and Ruby and Sapphire, to see what other elements of the relationship there might be there. But just on this episode alone, it is beautiful. It is beautiful, and it's amazing. And then my final favorite part of this episode, which also is, it coincides with my moment of terror. And, well, the moment of terror is Jasper and Laspas's fusion. I mean, again, Jasper is scary enough as she is, but the combined form there, very much taking on Jasper's expressions, is terrifying. I mean, like, we're almost talking full-on Cthulhu here. I'd say probably the next scariest fusion would be I forget its name, but it was the fusion between Amethyst and Garnet. That was scary for sure. But yeah, whatever the name of this fusion is, which I guess I'll have to look on the wiki to find out, but that was just terrifying. And the favorite part of the episode here being that the decision that Lapis makes to fuse with Jasper is done to trap her at the bottom of the ocean. Because as she says, she's tired of being pushed around. She's tired of being everyone's prisoner. So she's made Jasper her prisoner. And that was, again, even though that's a very powerful moment, it's also kind of terrifying. If you take time to think about it, it's just the concept itself of this, I would call her a neutral character by far, because she's neither a good guy necessarily nor a bad guy, but she takes this on her to essentially sacrifice herself and trap Jasper at the bottom of the ocean there on Earth, and therefore trapping herself as well. I found that to be truly terrifying, and yet at the same time amazing. So yeah, those are all of my favorite parts. As far as annoyances, again, I have none. I don't have any annoyances for these two episodes. These are the two most powerful episodes of this show so far. I mean, there have been powerful ones before it for sure, but I couldn't find any flaws in these two episodes. They are just so well done. So yeah, there's that. Moving on from there to my tracks of the episode, or really tracks of the episodes. The first of which, and definitely the highlight of both of these episodes, would be what I'm assuming is called Garnet Song. And it is just an absolutely wonderful, beautiful song. So well done. The woman who voices Garnet has such a wonderful voice. I cannot remember her name off the top of my head, but I know she's a singer, and she just does a great job in this song, and the entire sequence with which that song takes place is awesome. I just truly, truly loved it. That might actually be possibly my favorite song of the entire show. And then both episodes with their end credits with the vocals. Now, whereas in the previous episode, or before At the end of Political Power, we had no music. It was just silence. And, no music with the sounds of the ocean, which felt very foreboding, for good reason. But then at the end of both of these episodes, we get what had been like the piano version of the end credits before, but also these beautiful vocals that just, I mean, I'm assuming they'll probably go back to the regular end credits eventually, but to have this version at the very least for these 2 episodes is just amazing. And it was a little bit of difference that just truly made those end credits special. Now, one thing that could have maybe made it a little bit better, in conjunction with how I feel like Jailbreak should have started with the title card, maybe if the return had ended with silence, or like the sounds of space, kind of like the title card did in this episode. I feel like that might have been a bit more effective. But in the end, it was still just the use of the ending vocals was so well done. I absolutely love that version. I hope we will get to see it again, or hear it again rather. But even if not, knowing that it's in these 2 episodes, I feel like it was really well used, in my opinion. So moving on from there, I do have quotes of this episode, and they're all from Garnet. I mean, there's just all my quotes for this episode are from Garnet. And don't get me wrong, both episodes have plenty of quotes, so I'm sure some of you all will be able to voice some of your own. Let me know what were some of your favorites. But for me, Garnet just took the show with this episode. And some of these, yes, are from the Garnet song. But the first of which is after Garnet has been fused back together, and Steven learns that, yes, in fact, she has been a fusion the whole time. And he asks if he made a good first impression, and Garnet says, "Oh, Steven, we already love you." And that, again, is such a beautiful line to be coming, because, again, we're taking into account the fact that Garnet is one person, but that one Gemsona is from 2 different personalities, but those 2 personalities have a love and a connection all their own. So yes, they already loved Steven. Ruby was clearly just very extremely anxious and worried about Sapphire. Now my next quote is really part of the chorus of Garnet's song, and that's, "I am made of love." And I really guess the continuation of that too is, "and it's stronger than you." So, I mean, I there's no, try and explain that is to really just take away from the statement itself, but "I am made of love and it's stronger than you." That is just a beautiful, beautiful line that, you know, if you want to get into it a little bit more, we can, but that's where I'm going to leave that. Just a wonderful quote. And then finally, another part of the song was, "I am their fury, I am their patience, I am their conversation." With the third part of that being the most important, in my opinion. Because again, going into the idea of relationships, of being in love, I am a conversation. Because that is how, in my opinion, the strongest relationships are able to stay together, are able to get stronger, are able to get through the difficult times. Conversation, to having open conversation. And I just love that line. I love that line. It is so good. But okay, before I close up here, because I don't have any theories at the end of this one, honestly. I'm sure I could come up with one, but I didn't take the time to come up with a theory, I guess just because my mind was going a million miles an hour, especially after after the return. But I do have a question, and it has to do with the fusion between Lapis and Jasper. Now, as we've seen before, whenever there has been, I don't know the right way to put it, but basically, if the gems that fuse aren't in sync, they'll break apart rather easily. And we've seen it happen a lot with Pearl and Amethyst. Even in the Return, when they turn into Opal, and they're clearly, they're clearly very synced there. But when Steven appears, they're thrown off so much that they separate. So it's clearly, it's clear that you need a strong bond, or at the very least, need to be in sync in order to stay a fusion. So, first I was surprised that it was so easy for Jasper and Lapis to fuse, seemingly, but again, not a huge deal there. But when we get to the point of Lapis actually putting the shackles, or the water shackles around the fused form, we do see the form start to break apart, but I don't know, I guess my question is, how did they not break apart? If throughout that entire scene it's clear that Jasper wants out, Lapis is working against Jasper's interests. I don't know, maybe there's something in there that I'm not seeing that makes more sense, and maybe you all can help explain, unless it's explained in the show later how they're able to stay together so long, because even Garnet herself says those two are really bad for each other. So yeah, I don't fully get that. It's not an annoyance for me because it was so well done, but it's definitely a big question that I have, is like, how did they not immediately break apart once Lapis, started to take over and all that? I don't entirely know. It's something that really has me confused, I guess you might say. But moving on from there, I am so happy to, I'm not caught up with the show, but to finally be caught up with season 1. I'm so glad to have finally watched these 2 episodes and gone through the emotional roller coaster that both of them very much employ here. But I am very happy to be able to take some time to reflect on this first season and do a recap for this first season with you all. And of course it'll be the episodes that I have touched on, even those that are technically part of season 2, but are supposed to be part of season 1. You'll see what I mean, and especially if you look at the episode lists that I go by. But then after that, we will be getting into full disclosure, which is where I guess Steven will be having his conversation with Connie and telling her what all happened here. That should be an interesting conversation to have at the very least. But yeah, again, thank you all very much for being here for Discovering Steven Universe, a very long episode undoubtedly. But until next time, everyone, I am Papakin, and I will see you for the Season 1 recap. Until then, later days.